Are we having a party here? I don't know.
Welcome to Polishing Profits. Join our 3 industry experts boasting 140 years of experience as they unlock building service contracting secrets that can revolutionize your business.
All right. Well, I don't know, like a bad penny or a bad dream, we're back. Welcome to Polishing Profits. Before I introduce everybody, you'll notice an obvious person missing, and that is Sharon. We'd love to bring her on, but she's having problems with her internet service provider and having a few words with them and has not got her internet back up. So we'll let her tell you that story in the next episode. So you get the 3 amigos here. Ed wanted to call this the 3 old guys. What was it, Ed?
I don't remember.
The 3 old guys that hate technology.
Old guys forget too, so I know that was 2 minutes ago, but I forgot.
So we want to welcome John Voll today, man. Outstanding guest. He's got some great stuff for us. One thing I do want to say about him, we share a common ground. He and I have both been in business 50 years. So yeah, he's shaking his head. I shake my head. Ed, you've been about the same time, haven't you? About 50 years?
Yeah, but it's been, 7 national companies and then a whole bunch of startups with other companies. So
yeah. So with that, we're going to bring John in, and I'm going to let him tell you the pertinent details. We are thrilled to have him. We're going to talk about SBA loans, amongst a few other things. He has a dearth of wealth and information to provide us. So John, you take your time and let the audience know what you know, man.
All right, Mark, Ed, and Sharon, it's a real pleasure to be with you today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about SBA loans and how they can benefit the small business. Kind of a background with me, I have a real passion for small business. I come from a family-owned business. I got 10 brothers and sisters, and we got a gray iron foundry and a machining operation. Dad made it real clear we're not working in the office, so we're out there in shakeout and doing our thing. But I've got an undergraduate degree in business. I also have a master's degree in an entrepreneurial program out of USC. But again, we come from a family-owned business. I started a computer supply company out in California. I set up a vendor partnership with Walmart at one point, and I partnered with a real estate firm up in Williston, North Dakota. I was up there for about 10 years. And I've been a business broker where I picked up a lot of information on the SBA, and then also did financial consulting in Florida. Just a quick overview, with my 50 years of experience, the one thing I guess I want to point out before I get into the SBA loan is really how small businesses, a lot of them are in intensive care. And you guys might know this. And part of that is there's really, when you think about it, there's no real training for an entrepreneur. And when I first met Sharon and I saw what you guys are doing and the topics you cover, I mean, these are priceless for somebody that's in a small business. So hats off to you, and I just wish there was more programs like this because I've seen so many businesses that need this so bad.
Thank you.
Hey, John, there is a course, but it's in the bankruptcy court.
I see.
That's where you learn about business.
Yeah.
That's another kind of MBA, Ed. Management by wandering around and making mistakes.
Yeah, that's it. But, I was thinking about this, about the training, what you guys are doing and the value that it brings. And when I was going through this whole getting prepared for this presentation, I'm a real estate broker and I'm a life health agent. Now, for me to get those 2 licenses, I had to go through 60 hours of very intense training, take a very intense course. Then after I got done with that, I had to learn the products of all these things, And I thought to myself, you want to open up a business, you basically, mom and dad get together and say, hey, I always wanted to open up a bakery or buy a business. The next thing you know, you're getting into it. And, when you think about the risks that are involved with that without training. So here I am, a real estate agent or a life health guy. And I have that foundation, but a small business person doesn't, really have that foundation. And as a result of that, when you think about it, there's 30 million small businesses in this country, and they represent 46% of the GNP, and I think it's 66% represent, new jobs, but 60+% are having financial difficulties, and that's why I think that, it's so important to have training. And I mentioned that, small businesses are in intensive care. Well, 20% of all small businesses fail within the first year, and 50% don't make it to the fifth year, and there's only 35% by year 10. So you can see it plays such an important role in our economy, but boy, it's on shaky ground compared to what you got to do in other areas versus your own business. And I'm sure you guys run into that,
Yeah. Hey, John, let me ask you a quick question. From your perspective, when you say small business, talking in terms of annual gross revenue, okay, billing, invoicing, what do you consider in that category as a small business?
I would say that anything 5 million or under, I think would be considered
Okay.
kind of a small business. I think when you get, and usually what happens, you guys know this, is that, when you start off small, like you both have, and you start growing, you get up to the Y in the road. Either I'm going to turn into a big business with all the infrastructure, or I'm going to sell it, or kind of struggle along trying to be an entrepreneur. And that usually gets you into trouble. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I'm thinking that 5 million mark might be something that, I would see kind of a turning point. Would you think?
We're on the same page. Really, the 2 to 5. But amazingly, as I've done the last few years of this, I find people in the 5 to 10 million with critical issues.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
As they're getting ready to scale up to that next level, particularly 5 to 10. A lot of things aren't in place to get that going.
What's the definition? What's the definition according to the SBA of a small business, John?
I think you're right. I think it's up to about 10 million. In somewhere in that area. But I think there's definitely a part of it up there that have trouble. But it's usually that small entrepreneur that's trying to get going, that has no idea what's going on with business, and they're the ones that get into trouble. And the number one reason why they fail, which you guys know, is cash flow planning.
Yep.
I mean, that's something that if you look at anything, they'll tell you that's the case. Now, one of the reasons why I picked the SBA, actually, when you talk about people don't know that much about their business, I guarantee you, people know more about their Tesla than their business in a lot of these ways.
That's an interesting comparison.
Yeah. I mean, how many times you guys gone in and you look for the financials and they can't find it, or they just use them for tax purposes? But the scary thing is, they just have no clue on cash flow. But I wanted to talk about SBA because at least SBA's got some things in place to set the stage for being successful in a small business, And there's very few other things that are out there. And I think you guys are providing a great service. But what is SBA? SBA is basically the SBA does not make loans, but they guarantee loans with banks and non-bank entities that provide financing. And what they'll do is they'll come in and they'll guarantee a certain piece of it. And since they do that, the banks are much more prone to offer better interest rates and better terms because they don't have the risk that they did. And kind of how this works, if you have a loan, the bank makes the loan, but they take 50% of the risk. The SBA will guarantee 40, and then the buyer will put down 10%. And so because of that, really banks love SBA loans because they can get the fees, they can service the loans and everything else, and their risk is limited. So they are interested in getting into them,
Yep.
But as far as, what are SBA, what are some of the products that they have? Well, basically, and the other thing I was going to tell you, a lot of people don't know about SBA loans, and they're not, aware of them. But I mean, in 2022, there was 57,000 loans with 35 billion in funding. And again, there's still a number of people that are not aware of what they are. But some of the products are, the most popular is what they call the 7A, and that ranges 30,000 up to 5 million. And these can be used for a whole gamut of things. You can buy a business, you can buy inventory, you can buy equipment, you can, put in working capital. There's a number of things you can do. And that's one of the things that the SBA has that you're not going to get from a traditional lender. Most traditional lenders would say, oh, I'm going to give you the money, but you're going to use it for this, or I'm going to factor your receivables. With the SBA, you kind of got that open field. It's usually only 10% down, where you guys know if you go to a commercial bank, it's going to be 20 to 30% down. And the terms are, a bank might give you 7-year terms, the SBA will give you 10. And if there's real estate, you can get 25-year terms. So,
Wow,
but
okay.
it's an attractive option. Now, the rates are tied to prime, and it's like 2.75 over prime. So that's not anything to get excited about, because today I think it's 11.5 to 13.
Mhm.
So the rates are up there, but but with the SBA, they're at least comparable or a little bit lower than a regular commercial loan. So that's that. Then the other thing, then the next one is what they call a 504, and this is funding for bigger things like equipment, land, construction, parking lots, and all that kind of stuff. With that, you got to have 20% down, but the nice thing there, you can get fixed rates, where the 7A is more variable rates. With that,
Okay.
you can get fixed rates, so that's what's attractive about that. And then you can get 10 to 20 or 25-year terms. Now, there's also a microloan, and this is for like $500 to $50,000. Now, these are deals where the SBA works with the local small business development center. So if you got a small business and you're trying to get it off the ground, especially a disadvantaged business, you can go to them and present, your case, and they do provide funding for that. And these are all things that, these are all things that, you might not use them, but if you're a small business, you might as well figure out what it's about and see if you fit in. I mean, there were so many grants and things during COVID that, if you could just stay on top of it, you could have got funds in a number of different areas. But anyway, the micro loans can also be used for working capital and inventory and, and repair and improve small businesses. And there's no down payment there. And the average loan's about $13,000. So it's something that, you're going to have a better chance of getting that. And it's a heck of a lot better than charging it on your credit card, And again, find out if it might have.
What's the payment term on that time on those microloans? How far out do they go?
I think it's like a 5-year deal.
That far and that small. Okay.
Yeah, I think it is 5 years. I'd have to double check that. And it is 5 years. Now, the one thing I will say in researching this, what I found out, and then looking online for, lenders, there's more and more flexibility here. One guy says you don't really have to have a minimum credit score, and there's a lot of different things. This is kind of like the 60,000 foot view. But I would say when you dig into it, I would talk to these lenders and just ask them, what is the latest on that? But I believe it's about, I think it's in that area. Then there's the SBA 8, which is a business development loan. And the government has an aim of providing 5% of all, government contracts to small business. You guys might be aware of that. I don't know what kind of red tape you have to do to get that, but when I started my computer company, and this goes way back, I'm old as dirt, but anyway, when I started my old computer company, we set it up as a woman-owned business. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing because it was a woman-owned business, and we got the contact for JPL and Caltech out there.
Are you talking about Jet Propulsion Laboratory?
Pardon me? Yeah, JPL Laboratory.
Wow.
But out there, we set up as a woman-owned business, so it was a real benefit to get in there. And if you provided great service, which we did, I mean, the opportunities were, endless. So there's still those programs out there that it'd be worth it for, different business to look at that. There's an export loan group, and there's also disaster loans, which are in there. So if you're in the export business, if you need line of credit or you need bill bill of sale lading and all those things. Again, you can tap into that. And the main thing is, how many small businesses really know these things? And a lot of them think the whole thing is so complicated they don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
But I do think, and again, I guess my point of this whole thing is at least look into it and see, if you could benefit from it. Now, what are the requirements for an SBA loan? Well, you have to have a 650 or above credit score, and you have to have 2 years experience, and you have to provide a resume. Now, this is something that I think is important. These might look to be negatives, but let's face it, if you got somebody that's never owned a bakery before, and just because mama likes baking something, you want to get into that, you don't want to get into that business. You want to know what it's all about. And I sold those things, and until you tell somebody you got to get up at 2 a.m. and start making phones, it's not real attractive.
Didn't Michael Gerber refer to that in the E-Myth as an entrepreneurial fit by a good artisan or something like that?
But what was that again?
I said, wasn't it Michael Gerber that said when somebody that does a job really well, a good artisan, they have an entrepreneurial fit and open a business because they think it's a better way to go and do things?
Yeah, but you guys know what it's all about. It's it's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You got a great idea, but you got to make it work.
Yeah, Edison had that right.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have to try the traditional financing route and get turned down before you get into the SBA, which is kind of interesting. So you got to try that. Although, if you can get traditional financing, there might be a benefit. If you have a good relationship for your bank and you can get good terms and everything else, you don't have to hassle with the whole SBA thing. So,
yeah,
but
the bank would kind of frown on a 650 credit score, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what I was thinking. That seems pretty low.
Yeah. Now, but for SBA, again, they're opening up that window to get down to 650. Oh yeah, I'm sure the bank's going to want to look at something 700 plus, or they're not going to touch it. But again, this is setting an incentive for folks to get in their own business. You got to have enough cash injection, and the biggest benefit I see with an SBA loan with the condition of small business today, you got to have a business plan, and nobody likes to do business plans. The reason why a lot of them don't want to do it is, oh my God, the business plan, how am I ever going to put that together? And, can somebody do it for me? So that's one of the requirements. So
I'm going to hitchhike on your business plan real quickly. I was a SCORE mentor for 5 years.
Were you?
That's the small, so everybody knows, that's the small business arm of the SBA.
Yeah, right.
They don't lend money, but after you get going, then you go up to the SBA. And after 4 years, I think, and probably 150 people served, that I've talked with.
Yeah.
2% had a business plan. 10% knew what it was, and the rest of them kind of looked at me and said, well, how do we do that? And that's where we spent a fair amount. And I'm talking about folks even at the, that were looking to get some money at the $300,000, $30,000 a month mark in different manufacturing as well as service businesses. So I got exposure, as you do in the SBA, to all different types of industries. And they would show you this thing and you go, well, the bank's going to throw you out.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to bake a cake, you got to have a recipe how to get from A to B.
Yep.
But yeah, and that's why a lot of people don't want to do it. They shy away from that. But as you guys know, there's nothing more important than a good detailed business plan with projections of income and cash flow.
Well, Ed, you got a thought over there, bud?
Yeah, I was just thinking about all the new AI stuff. That might change the whole business plan thing.
Yeah. It might, but I don't know that much about it. I guess I'm going to plead ignorance, but all I know, to me, and you guys maybe can go along with this, the most important thing I found in business, you got to have a rolling cash flow statement. What's coming in? What do I got? What's coming in? What's going out? No different than balancing your checkbook, know? And, the whole thing is, your sales could be booming and you could have the greatest profit margin than anybody in the industry. That all looks good, but baby, you run out of cash, the party's over, you know? And I see that so often, you know, when I was in it. And what people don't realize is, you know, you don't die when you're growing, you die when you're slowing. Because when you're growing, everything's going good and you're bringing in sales and you're putting into inventory and all that kind of stuff, then money's tight. But then when things slow down, especially seasonal businesses, the receivables come in, you're not doing inventory, you're not doing labor. All of a sudden, there's a big bushel basket of cash in the bank, and a lot of them go off and buy the Type A motorhome, you know. And then when you turn around to go back up, they're out of business. And
The boat. They get the boat.
exactly. But you know, it's just, you know, it's and like you said, Mark, I mean, it's hard to believe that they don't have a business plan. And that's why I think, you know, even though I got all these undergraduate degrees and MBAs and all that stuff, it still never taught me anything about boots on the street, small business, you know. And
Right.
where do these people learn it? If you guys don't teach them, you know, on courses like this, or if they don't tap into the SBA, I don't know where they get it, you know. And there's a whole lot of people out there that are getting into businesses and they really don't have the skills. But if I want to sell insurance or real estate, man, they put me through the ringer, you know.
Well, to your last point about the cash and, you know, the seasonal businesses, one of the things that I really drive home when I'm working with my clients, or even if I'm just having a discussion with somebody,
Yeah.
it's an old saying, but I love it. Revenue for vanity, profit for sanity, and cash is always king.
Interesting. And that is so true.
If you
Yeah.
Google it, you'll get 6 million hits in about 2 seconds. Because I thought, is that saying still relevant? You wouldn't believe the pages that came up on that statement.
Really. Yeah.
Yep.
But how many people really understand it and believe it till it's too late, you know? I don't know.
Now, now you're doing real business. You're just not talking theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, it's the key to business is don't run out of cash. DROOC.
Yep.
That's it. That's it.
That's it. And you guys know, you know, I remember getting up in the middle of the night, and when I started my computer supply business out of my 1-bedroom apartment. At 3:00 in the morning, I'm going with a, you know, spreadsheet. I said, okay, now if I got this much in assets and I got this much on the shelf, what am I worth? 10 grand or whatever. You want to know what kind of cash you got, and you start like that. But you're right, cash is where it's at, or you're going to be in trouble. You know.
You bring up a funny point there, and I can to this day remember sitting. We were doing about $1 million a year. We'd just broken that mark.
Yeah.
We're sitting there talking, and the fellow that was doing the accounting for us, and one of the partners early on, said, "Well, we're out of cash. We need to go to the bank." And of course, all I'm doing is looking at the P&L. You know, I'm out selling. And, well, yeah, we had a lovely profit. We had no cash. It was all spent going out the back door for labor, the AP, the things we were doing. And all of a sudden, we were up against the big payroll. And he says, "We need a loan." Thus, the line of credit started coming. But boy, did we change how we did business from that time on, watching that cash.
Yeah. You know, and that's exactly right. And of course, you know, this is, and it's the whole thing about everybody writes everything off, and then they want to get a big loan, and you got to tell them, hey, you got to play it straight for, you know, a few years to get it back on track.
Yep.
But I mean, the pros of it, you know, the pros of SBA loans is, you know, there really is a lot of support, and there's counseling, and there's things that the SBA offers. I mean, you could go to SBA.gov and you could find stuff, you know, on every single subject that you can imagine. And there's a real incentive that I think that they want to make businesses succeed and move forward. Another thing is you get reasonable interest rates, you get longer repayment terms. And like I said earlier, there's multiple uses for that cash, and you really got an open, you know, I don't know, it's open checkbook, but you can use that cash in so many different ways. You just got to prove it. You got to have it in your business plan, you know, and you got to, you know, show that there's some kind of return. And another positive is, again, like I mentioned, there's happy lenders. Since the SBA is picking up a lot of the risk, their incentive to move over those. But one of the cons, the biggest con I would say, is the longer wait times. So the stack of paperwork and the longer wait times, that's what turns people off. But but again, if you've got those things, but I still believe if you go into a bank and look for a loan, what happens, you guys know this. If you go try to get a commercial loan, you get turned down. The first thing people want to do is they don't look at the SBA because business plans and time, they jump right over and take out a home equity loan, or they take their retirement money, or or they borrow from the family, and I see them get so excited because they want to get into a franchise or something, and they just, oh honey, we'll just do this and everything's going to happen. And it just doesn't work that way. Or the other thing, maybe you guys can shed some light on this. There's so many of these online business lenders that you can get money in 24 hours and, get 100 grand or 50 grand. Well, there's no such thing as easy money. And the only thing I can think, I didn't really research it that much, but I bet the interest rate's got to be astronomical. I don't know.
25 to 30% on
Really?
some of those deals. And that the interest rates will fluctuate based on your collateral, okay?
Yeah.
And the amount of risk they believe they're taking. But I've talked to businesses that they've looked into that, and it's been up to 30%.
Yeah. And
that's expensive money. You better be making big profit to borrow that money.
And it may be short term and make some money out of it and turn it around.
Yep.
But but what happens with that, and even with commercial loans, is you're getting the money because of your credit score, because you're putting the house up for hock and you got whatever. You're putting all that together, you get the money, but there's no direction on how it's going to be used and, how it fits into your plan. So I see this so many times in that area where all of a sudden you're just tapped out. It had nothing to do with the business. Just, oh, honey, we got the loan and here we go. So, but yeah, but I've seen this with franchises too, where, the franchise people, I don't know if you guys are in this or not, but they're darn good salespeople, and they're out selling franchises. And like, oh, this poor couple that I met up in North Dakota, they took everything and put it into this candy franchise, and all they got was a template of what everybody else is doing and what you can make. And you guys know the drill, what you can make and all you got to do. And people see that as the Bible, but you got to learn, you got to sell, and you got to manage the place.
Yeah, information and application are two different things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's
so, but like I said, most businesses fail when they're growing, and we talked about the seasonality. But I think that there's no question the business plan is the most. That is without a doubt. If I had to say anything about an SBA loan, if you go to the bank, they're not going to require it in most cases. You guys, maybe you can, so nobody really looks for one except SBA. And so, I think even though you don't like it, the best thing is to go through that process, because you're going to have to build one. And like you said, Mark, nobody wants to do it, but it's critical to have one,
Well, and having spent some time in SCORE, let me just for the audience, people say business plan and they get these horrendous things in their mind of 40 and 50 pages and all these pro formas and then all the support. It isn't, when, at least at the SCORE level, when we were working with people to go for the loans you were talking about, the SBA loan, you can get this done in 5 or 6 pages in a one sheet pro forma. And if you have any kind of track record, you set the track record up. Here we are. And honestly, you can get it done probably in 2 to 3 days worth of work. So, anywhere between 24 and 72 hours, you can have this thing done, even following the templates. Then you go to a place like SCORE, have somebody run it through you. And then, like you said, now you got to go out and take your lumps, put it out. And I'll guarantee you the first time you put out the banker, they're going to hit you over the head and give you 20,000 things you haven't thought of. Yeah. And you're going to go back. But it's not that difficult. Business plans are not, we all look at these 40, 50 page things in our mind. Not true, right? I mean, you've got the degree and you've done it. Would you agree with it?
Oh, yeah. There's no question about it. I know when people, everybody goes online and they'll get a SBA template, and the thing is 28 pages long. And then what's your background? And were you in a management class in high school? And were you in the band and everything else? And the type of business, and they'll go into all this detail about all those things. But when the rubber meets the road, you got a product that's saleable, and you got the cash and the management to manage it.
Yep.
But you're right; it can become, and I think people just overreacted. It's going to be that big of a deal. But again, to me, small businesses, I hate to see it, but it's in a critical stage just because, and it's really, I just became aware of this when I thought about what little training we have for such a big part of the economy. And there's just not enough of you guys going around sharing this stuff and educating people. So, I just hope, that you keep doing it and keep the show on the road, because we still got, 20% are dying the first year, and 50% in 5 years, and 35% by year 10. The other thing I found is only 1/3 of family businesses make it to the second generation, and only 12% make it to the third generation.
Now that I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah. And I think I think what that is, I kind of saw it with our own family businesses that, the first generation, dad has a real passion and he loves castings. He likes, putting things together, and eats, sleeps, and drinks the foundry business. Well, the sons come along and, I want to take over the business. And I was one of those that I thought, I want to take over, work in the family business. But I hated cat. I don't want anything to do with that, although you think you're supposed to take over the family business. So if you don't have anybody that's got that same fire in their belly, it's not going to work. They're not going to be putting it in. So so that usually doesn't work. But, bottom line, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's really what I think what happens with people. Now, there's a whole lot of detail with SBA loans. And I mean, I covered a whole lot of stuff. And to anybody, it can be very confusing. And so what I recommend people do is that, the SBA is not for everyone. If you got a good relationship with your bank and you can get great terms and great interest rates and you can get the job done, that's the place, you want to go that route. But I'd say if you have a bank that you work with and they have an SBA program, start there and at least go in there and go through some of these questions. What do I need to do to qualify? What's the, look at my business and what can I do with it? If you don't have a bank, what I have found is the most effective is find preferred non-bank lenders. And these guys, they eat, sleep, and drink SBA, and they're hungry. They want to get loans. And I found you could call them up, and instead of waiting for, 3 days or 4 days to get a pre-approval, they can usually do it in 1 day. I mean, I've had situations where I can provide them 3 years of profit and loss, and they can come back and say, hey, look, this thing would qualify for SBA. They could also answer all your questions. And the other great thing about a preferred lender is that all the underwriting and pre-approvals and funding is all done in-house. And, because they've got the approval to do that. If you're not preferred, it all has to go back to the SBA for sign-off. And that's where your real delay comes. But I think it's a thing. I would go to those any kind of a preferred lender. I mean, if it's a bank, but I found that the non-banks are just really much more aggressive and work with you. And then, of course, get on SBA.gov and read the whole thing over and just take in anything you can. But I guess in summary, I would just say, I think all businesses should really understand this financing tool. And before you get all excited about going over and getting a hard money loan or just, hocking the house for everything, at least look at this option,
I couldn't agree. When you say non-banks, are you thinking credit unions and those things when you say a non-bank?
Yeah, there's those, but if you get on and you Google, preferred SBA lenders,
Okay.
and you're going to get banks, but you're also going to get a lot of other companies that are really in that bailiwick. And I would say get on there and check their ratings and see what's going on. And But there's some real aggressive lenders. I mean, these guys are calling looking for loans. But I've called them quite a bit, just as, will this thing qualify and will this program work? And they can give you a pretty quick answer. So it's not like this arduous, long process that you got to go through to get an answer. And that's what most people think. Now, it's the government and I got to fill out forms and all that. Well, you can cut to the chase with one of these guys and get feedback pretty quick. And then, you're going to get a yes or no, then you can move on. So, but but at least you can do that. And if you have a pretty good chance that that's going to fly, even if you go in and go through the motions to get a regular commercial loan, your chances of that happening are pretty slim, because they're not, you guys know, their cash flow doesn't mean anything to them. It's like, what are you going to put up for collateral?
Yeah, if this thing bottoms up, what can I take to make myself whole? Exactly.
But anyway, if you guys, I don't know if you have any questions, or if anybody out there, my name's John Voll. It's V as in Victor, OLL. And my email is johnvoll66@gmail.com. And my number is 850-396-2730. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions anybody might have, or direct you to somebody that might have those answers. But I just hope that we can improve the health of small business and keep it going, because it's a huge part of our economy. And, we need that to keep growing and rolling.
And in case you're looking for John's information and didn't get it right away, it will be in our introduction notes to our podcast. So how you can find him, his email. And I highly suggest, if you're looking for money or going to need money, don't wait until you need it. If you're suspecting it, get a hold of him. And these are some of the resources, people like John, that we want to bring into the community that can help get money where you're having problems. And I'll give the SBA one kudo. There was a point in our company, we were probably hitting 5 or 6 million, and we got way over our skis on growth. We got a $400,000 loan from the SBA. Literally saved the company.
Wow, good.
Literally saved the company. And we didn't know what to do. And the banker, of course, he knew everything about us, said, I'm not lending you 400. You're already out on your line of credit.
Now, if you didn't have that option,
20 years could have been the end of the run. Yes, sir. We got that far out, and it was growth. We got that far out. We had 500 employees. We were way over our skis, 3 states. And you know how it is. You're running the business. Eyes are off the finance, and bingo. Yeah. And we lost the customer. You know the tale.
Yeah, I know the tale.
It was a perfect storm. Ed, you had your hand up there. Why don't you chime in here? You've been quiet.
I deal with a lot of people on the front end of starting their businesses. They're just getting rolling, and one of the important pieces of advice that I kind of press hard on is that you need some people with you, and among them is a banker. And every once in a while, I'll see a question about, listen, what's a good bank for us? And it's like, the bank doesn't matter. It makes absolutely no difference at all. What you need is a banker, somebody that'll listen to you, that'll take the time to understand your business. Yep. And that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for a bank. Okay. Oh, and when your contact leaves that bank, you go with them.
No, that's very true. And
you maintain that relationship.
No question. And make sure it's not a asset-based lender bank, but somebody that really understands cash flow. That's the key to it. And so many people don't. And you guys know this. There's so much. The value is really in the cash flow, but people don't know that, and they figure, well, I'll sell my assets and that's it. So, but you're definitely right. Align yourself with somebody like that.
The Scrub Down, a recap of what was covered on today's episode.
So here we are at the Scrub Down, and normally Ed, Sharon, and I give you our wise or not so wise advice on what the key points you should be focusing on were. But when we have our guests, we allow them the last word. And so, John, with that, I'm going to say scrub us down and tell us what key points people need to focus on from our episode today.
I would say that the key is businesses today have got major cash flow problems, And one of the biggest issues that businesses have is finance. I think what you really suggest you do is evaluate all your finance sources. Look at your own personal investments, look at commercial lending, and look at all these options. But don't forget the SBA. Their main mission is to make businesses successful. So I highly recommend get a hold of your local SBA lender and just sit down and say, let's go through all the programs that might apply to me. Take the time to do it and at least find out I qualify or I don't qualify. You not only could get funding, but you could also get a lot of business growth opportunities. And then if you can focus in on that 8A program where you can get 5% of business contracts, there might be something you can build business. So I would say just become familiar with all the SBA programs that are out there. And if they fit, great. If they don't, I just think you need to explore every opportunity with that. I'd say your best bet is to go to, preferred SBA lenders for sure, because they'll be able to give you the quick answer. And of course, you can go on SBA.gov and get, the whole full piece orchestra. So, but no, this has been a pleasure. I feel really good about having the opportunity to share this with you, and hopefully it'll be of some help to some, business entrepreneurs out there.
It's going to be an immense help because people aren't thinking about this thing, unfortunately, meaning a loan until it's too late. And I'm speaking from experience, as I said. So this was a great discussion, John. Thanks for being here. We will have you back because I think we could have a lot of good discussions about small business and other areas. So we're going to have you back. We'll get that scheduled.
Yeah, I love this stuff. You pick a topic and I'll jump into it. But yeah, I'd love to join you guys on future ones. That's for sure.
Well, don't threaten us with a good time, okay?
Oh, no.
That took you a second because of the word threaten.
Oh, no.
With that, we're going to say
about that. I like a good time. I don't need to be serious. I'm not serious all the time. I'm crazy.
Oh, no, but talking business is a good time.
Oh, yeah. I always love talking business.
Love talking business.
John, that was fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Now,
we're going to say adios and sign off.
Adios. We good to see you guys. Take care.